Welcome back to the Eagle's Eye Podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and today is episode 84. Let me tell you the most common thing I see when I sit down with a serious athlete or client and actually dig into their nutrition. They know about creatine, they've got opinions on the anabolic window, they're running some version of carb cycling that they've read about online, and they take 5 supplements every morning. And then I ask them what they're eating total for calories. In silence. They don't know, not even close. And their protein is probably around 1.1 grams per kilogram on a good day. That right there is the problem. This is what I call majoring in the minors. And today, we're going to fix it. What I want to give you today is a framework I've been building and refining for years. It's grounded in actual research, systematic reviews, meta-analyses, consensus position stands from organizations like the International Society of Sports Nutrition, or ISSN, and it's designed to do one thing: help you stop wasting effort on low-value variables while higher valuable ones go undressed. The core idea is simple. Not all nutrition variables matter equally. Some things drive the overwhelming majority of your performance, your recovery, your body composition, and your long-term health. And some things are fine-tuning tools that only matter once you've got the big stuff nailed. I organize nutrition into 4 tiers. Tier 1 at the bottom, the foundation, the non-negotiables. Tier 4 at the top, the fine-tuning, the optimization work. And the rule that governs the whole system is this: you don't earn the right to optimize until you're consistently executing the fundamentals. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else is just filling in the details. Let's go through all 4 tiers. Tier 1 is the foundation. It's a non-negotiable, and it has 4 variables: total caloric intake, protein, carbohydrates, and hydration. If any of these are broken, none of them save you. Not creatine, not timing protocols, nothing. Let's start with total energy, because this is the variable, when it's wrong, breaks everything else simultaneously. In 2024, a systematic review and meta-analysis looked at over 6,000 athletes across a dozen of studies. It found that nearly 45% of them, almost half, had low energy availability, meaning they were not eating enough to support their training load. And what happened to those athletes? Decreased performance, decreased training response, increased illness, higher injury rates, hormonal suppression, bone stress injuries, the whole cascade. Low energy availability has a clinical name now. It's called REDS, Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. And what's important to understand is that performance impairment shows up before you start feeling overtly unwell. You can be subtly underfueled for months without even knowing it. You think you're just tired because you're training hard. But most athletes who are under-eating are not doing it intentionally. They're eating clean, they're making healthy choices, but the volume is not there to support what their body's asking to do. So the first question you need to answer is not, am I eating well? It's, am I eating enough? The practical target: most hard training athletes need somewhere between 2,800 and 4,500 plus calories a day, depending on body size and training volume. And that number goes up when training load goes up. It's one of the most underappreciated and underapplied principles in practice. The second variable is protein. Backed by multiple meta-analyses, puts the effective range for most athletes at 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. When you're in a calorie deficit and trying to preserve lean mass, that goes up as high as 3.1 grams per kilo. The landmark meta-analysis by Morton and colleagues covered nearly 1,900 participants across 49 trials. It found protein supplementation significantly increased lean mass gains with resistance training, but the effects plateau around 1.26 grams per kilo for most people. Above that, the additional benefit is smaller, but individual variability means targeting the upper end of that range is a smart hedge. The practical translation: if you weigh 80 kilos, you need roughly 130 to 175 grams of protein per day, not from supplements, from your actual diet. That's where most athletes are falling short. The third variable: carbohydrates. Over 100 years of research, more than 160 studies, in a recent comprehensive review has confirmed what we've known for a long time. Carbohydrate intake is one of the most reliably ergogenic nutrition variables for any sport that involves moderate to high intensity work. Your muscles run on glycogen. Glycogen comes from carbohydrates, and unlike fat stores, glycogen is limited. You have to replenish it through your diet. When glycogen is low, performance drops, your body starts catabolizing muscle, and the training signal you're trying to send gets blunted. For endurance athletes doing high volume, the ISSN recommends up to 10 or more grams per kilo per day during those heavy, intense blocks. For strength athletes, 3 to 5 grams per kilo is a solid working target. The bigger principle is this: your carbohydrate intake should scale up and down with your training load. Most athletes don't do this. They eat the same on a high volume block as they do on a deload week. If you're chronically underfueled in your training sessions with carbohydrates and wondering why you can't push through the second half of your workouts, that's your answer. The fourth variable is hydration. The evidence threshold here is very clean. Dehydration of just 2% of body weight consistently impairs performance in prolonged exercise. And the research shows cognitive impairment starts even earlier, at around 1 to 2%. For an 80 kilo athlete, that's 1.6 kilos of water weight. That happens faster than most people think. The simple standard: arrive to every training session with pale yellow urine. If you're pissing dark yellow, you're already behind. Tier 2 is where nutrition starts to get interesting. These variables directly influence your training quality, your recovery rate, and how well you actually adapt to the stress you're putting in. They're meaningful, but they operate within the context of functioning foundations. Pre-training nutrition, the general principle: consuming a mixed meal 2 to 4 hours before training with carbohydrates, some protein, and lower fats and fiber. Tops up glycogen stores, gives you substrate for the session, and doesn't wreck your gut. For most athletes in a normal training schedule, this is just breakfast or lunch. It doesn't need to be complicated. Intra-workout nutrition. This one is session length dependent. For sessions under 60 minutes in a well-nourished athlete, you don't need to do anything but water. For sessions over 60 to 90 minutes, 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour makes real performance differences. For long endurance sessions over 90 minutes, you're looking at 60 to 90 grams per hour, ideally from a 2 to 1 glucose to fructose mix, because your gut can absorb 2 types of carbohydrates simultaneously through different transport channels. Post-training nutrition, I need to address the anabolic window because this has been one of the biggest myths in sports nutrition. The window is not 30 minutes. Multiple meta-analyses now confirm that immediate protein timing has minimal additional benefit when your total daily protein is adequate. The window is closer to 2 hours, so if you finish your training and you're not hungry or you need to drive home, you're fine. You've got time. What the research does support is a dose of roughly 0.4 grams per protein per kilo of body weight within 2 hours of training, combined with carbohydrates when back-to-back sessions are on the schedule. I'd also add micronutrient sufficiency in tier 2. Iron, vitamin D, vitamin B12 for plant-based athletes, magnesium. These aren't glamorous, but iron deficiency is present in 20 to 40% of female athletes and affects your aerobic capacity directly. Vitamin D insufficiency shows up in over 50% of elite athletes in many studies, so get your blood work done annually, don't guess. Tier 3 is where you start getting legitimately useful refinements, but legitimately smaller effect sizes than what we've been talking about. Protein distribution research from Areta and colleagues showed that spreading your daily protein across 4 to 5 meals rather than loading it into 1 or 2 produces better muscle protein synthesis over a 24-hour period. The practical rule: every main meal should have a meaningful protein source. Don't skip breakfast protein, and 30 to 40 grams of slow digesting protein before sleep, something like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, has actual evidence behind it for overnight recovery in trained athletes. Carbohydrate periodization, the concept of matching carbohydrate intake to the actual demand of each training days. More carbs on hard days, fewer on easy or rest days. The evidence on whether this approach outperforms consistent high carbohydrate intake is actually pretty mixed. 2021 study found it doesn't reliably beat on a consistently high-end carb strategy in trained athletes, but the practical real value is that it prevents overeating on easy days while ensuring adequate fuel when you actually need it. Food quality, I don't have a perfectly clean effect size to give you here, but predominantly whole, minimally processed foods, 80 to 90% of your intake being that, supports better micronutrient status. better gut health, lower systemic inflammation, and higher satiety per calorie, which is fullness. These things matter cumulatively over months and years. Aim for 5 to 9 servings of vegetables and fruit per day. Vary your protein sources and get your legumes in. Tier 4 is where supplementation conversation belongs. And yes, there are supplements with genuinely strong evidence, but notice where we are in the hierarchy. We're on the 4th tier. You've got to earn your way up here. Creatine monohydrate, the most extensively studied ergogenic supplement in sports science. Multiple meta-analysis confirm that 3 to 5 grams per day combined with resistance training significantly increases strength and power output, and the evidence is clear and consistent. It does not work for endurance performance. It is safe long-term, generic monohydrate equivalent to branded versions. This is one of the few supplements where the recommendation is pretty straightforward. Caffeine, 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight, consumed about 60 minutes before exercise, reliably improves endurance, strength, and power performance. The minimum effective dose is closer to 1 to 2 milligrams per kilo, so a cup or two of coffee. Individual variability is also real. Genetics affect how you metabolize caffeine, and tolerance develops with daily use. If you want the ergogenic benefit, strategic cycling, using it for key sessions rather than a daily dependency, is the smarter approach. Beta-alanine and dietary nitrates both have legitimate evidence for specific use cases. Beta-alanine is the most relevant for sports in high-intensity efforts lasting 1 to 4 minutes. Dietary nitrates from beetroot concentrate show performance benefits in events moderate to high intensity, particularly in sub-elite athletes. Both are worth investigating if you're at a level where these refinements are relevant. Here's why athletes end up living at tier 4 while tier 1 is broken. Tier 1 variables are boring. Eat enough, get your protein, fuel your training. They're not exciting. No one's writing clickbait headlines about caloric intake. Tier 4 variables are marketed. That's a massive industry selling you the idea that one supplement, one timing protocol, one advanced strategy is the thing standing between you and your next performance breakthrough. But it's not. But that's a compelling story to sell. And here's the thing. Tier 4 variables are easier to execute than Tier 1. It is easier to take a creatine supplement every morning than it is to consistently hit your protein intake for 6 months straight across road trips and competitions and days when you're exhausted and you just grab whatever's available. Fundamentals require discipline. Optimization is just buying something. So here's where I want to leave you. The research is actually pretty clear on what matters most. Total energy availability, protein 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo, carbohydrates matched to your training demands, adequate hydration every single day. Get those 4 things right consistently, and you're already ahead of the majority of athletes who will never do it because they're too busy researching their next supplement stack. If you've got tier 1 dialed, genuinely, not just in theory, then go to tier 2. Pre-training nutrition, recovery nutrition, micronutrient screening, get blood work done. And once 2's locked in, then tier 3 refinements start to matter. Then, only then, does tier 4 actually make sense. The hierarchy is the framework. Work in the hierarchy. You don't earn the right to optimize until you execute the fundamentals. If this was useful for you, share it with an athlete or friend who trains hard and needs to hear this, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Keep showing up.